Blanco the Artsy sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra, Karina. This is Lesson 8, The Unbelievable Truth, Part 1. After getting married, Karina took a break from the schooling nonsense. Her wedding was announced in a little newspaper to the school in a little corner of the newspaper. All schools ran their own little presses. Most of the news printed were exaggerated gossip. The one in Karina's school was no different. Those who ran the newspaper were allowed to charge money, and they were always looking for the next scoop. It had been a busy weekend, and Karina's small wedding was not something that was considered newsworthy. Good news rarely warranted the public's interest. Marduke was not a fan of free press, but he allowed his idiots to say whatever they felt like. He also didn't make a big deal of whatever slander was printed about him. In the old days, talking and writing nonsense about the king was a good way to get yourself hanged by the papilla. With free press, the newspaper was slowly getting out of control, even without the invention of the camera. It was a sunny day when Karina said to Letodus, "You know, I have been thinking of opening up a little newspaper of my own." "Et tu, Karina?" asked Ivano, frowning. The pair were sitting at the table eating breakfast with the family. Vilka on that particular day was in the form of a chair, while he sat on a chair. "If it will amuse you, then go for it," said Letodus, "though it really feels like a pointless venture if you ask me." "Well, I figure since you took the truth of the world so well, it was a good attempt as any to spread it. The truth will set you free and all that nonsense. And I never with the idea of people being prisoners," said Karina. "They are not prisoners, my dear sister. It is just not advisable for them to wander about in space without a helmet. It is just not healthy for them to be aware of the bigger, wider universe," said Marduke. "Yes, I suppose it would be irresponsible to just throw them out into the strange unknown," said Karina more to herself. "It is for them to decide, that's all, but only if they have the adequate information," said Marduke. "That I shall provide. Nothing but the truth for my readers," said Karina, enamored with her idea. "To be safe, you should just write the truth, but not give them any physical evidence," suggested Marduke. "How so?" asked Vincal. "You know, if you get too carried away, then the Arab master might just do a global mind wipe, or may decide to start over again, which is something I do not agree with," said Marduke. "What is starting over?" asked Letodus. "Sounds ominous." "It means everyone dies," said Ivano. "Relax, nobody dies when the master decides to start over. You just get put inside a jar, and when the rearrangement is done, you get to come back, fresh as a newborn babe, or maybe as a newborn babe," said Vinca, trying to help Letodus feel better. "How many times have we started over?" asked Letodus. "Me?" asked Karina. "I had nothing to do with it. From what I hear, this world has been recycled about 37 times. The cycling keeps the humanoid from making a mess of everything. It did not affect the lesser creatures." I am sorry to be so unworthy," said Letodus, feeling alluded to. "And how many times have we had this conversation?" "Gosh, you're so gullible," said Karina, laughing. "You were born after the cycling was interrupted. You have Bersame to thank for that. He made the world ever so interesting with his life, and since he was the first determining factor to be born in this world, it made it impossible for the recycling cycle to resume. From here on out, things will move forward, for better or for worse." "Determining factor," said Letodus. "Sounds interesting. So if you are an amazing king who does great things, you become one. You become a determining factor?" "You don't become one. You are either one or you are not. Even a person who lives the most mundane of lives can be important, based on the ripple effect of his actions. So an action as simple as buying a loaf of bread can be crucial in the grand scheme of things, but we are not aware of it, because most humanoids cannot think fourth-dimensionally, except if they are born blind." Time, bro?
10 minutes.
said Karina, trying to explain this to the todos. After rambling a bit about sin and the blind mercenary foreigners, the todos pretended to understand so that Karina could go on with her morning routine. Ever since Letodos married his father had a new appreciation for his son. He no longer had Letodos wearing a sign, wearing a stupid advertisement wherever he went. In a sense, Letodos was finally getting some much needed respect. While Karina watched, she noticed a fellow following her. She turned a corner and walked towards the cafe. She sat down. Eventually, she said with her mind, "If you have something to say, you better get around to it." The person who was following her was Janus. He sat before her and said, "I read the lesson plan for today, and I thought I would speak to you in person instead of before the others." "If it would please you," gestured Karina to a cup of black tea that was placed before Janus. Janus sat down, but he refused to drink the tea. Sighing, Karina said, "What a bother." So what I must say is a bother?" asked Janus. "Yes, indeed. I can see it right now as clear as day, and regardless of what I say, I won't be able to prevent the unfolding of today's events," said Karina with her eyes the color of cyan for the color of cyan. Janus had never seen Karina's eye with that unusual color. He had seen the change occur in Marduke, but only once when he was small. And he had heard from his father that Marduke had second sight, but that is not the proper way of calling it. Due to the bizarre quality nature of his father, Marduke's eyes at times were like those of 4D beings, and he was able to perceive time with all its twisting and winding possibility. Those with true foresight were able to tell which of the many paths people were going to walk that day. The rest just fell under the realms of possibility. "He doesn't love you, you know. He's just settling because he doesn't want to live alone, and you just pity him," said Janus. "Pity is a strong word, but as far as it concerns you, it is a stronger feeling than what I am feeling for you at the moment," said Karina with disdain. Janus departed after hearing this. Karina sighed and she sipped her black tea. She rested her chin on her hand as she pondered on how things had become such a bother. Aside from the stupid lessons and occasional pep talks, she had never done or said anything to try to earn the affection of her pupils. Even so, there was the occasional Alba that sent her letters and flowers from time to time. It did not matter how many times she destroyed those gifts, they never seemed to end. This was part of the reason why she married Letodus. He was of a family of influence, and she knew that his father would not allow the bugs to land on the prize his son had supposedly won. The trick had worked, and for the last couple of weeks, Karina had experienced some sense of her normalcy. What she had not counted on was Janus' infatuation turning into a fixation. It was quite vexing, but what could Karina do? In the end, she decided to do as her brother and just let things unfold. If things went sour, she was strong enough to just laugh it off. As for Letodus, he was a big boy, so he could manage. Time?
6 minutes.
Still, to be certain, Karina had gifted him a hamadryad dagger. They were typically native to the northern continent, but one had stowaway in Brohilda's bag, and when she was traveling to Veragerung with her father Mildred, she had heard that he had returned to Saturnastra, and she was eager to pester him with her gibberish. Over the surface, the dagger resembled steel, with a nice ornamentation. Still, one needed to hold it to know that it was wood instead of iron, and the fact that it floated also hinted as though its true nature. Letodus had accepted the gift without giving it much thought, and since wearing ornamental daggers was the fashion of the day, he sported the dagger that Karina had gifted him. That day Letodus did not have anything particular to do in the afternoon, and so he decided to attend his wife's class, more out of habit than necessity. He dined with his mother as he did every day, even though he now lived with his wife, and during that visit his mother was chastising him for not taking his wife to live with him. Adolfo did not mind at all, since in his mind a person of lower means should move to the home of a person of a higher status, and based on Karina's baubles, Adolfo wagered she had a hefty fortune, at least in jewelry. Letodus pondered what his mother said as he made his way to class, and when Karina arrived, she was disappointed to know that her little husband hadn't arrived yet. Neither was Lucian and Janus, and due to the title of the class and a lot of other regulars had decided not to appear. The only people in class, though, today were Miko, Carmeta, Casimir, and Barisol. There was an unwelcome visitor as well, in the form of the pit bull by the name Monarchy. He had followed after Karina when she had entered, and Begonia was so used to her dog staying put that she had not noticed his departure. Time?
4 minutes.
Karina fed Monarchy a piece of bone with raw meat. The dog then proceeded to eat it with gusto. The only sound was of the snapping teeth and meat. Eventually Barisol said, "How can you ever tell if people are supposed to be coming or not?" "I don't know, I just guess," like Karina. "The lesson of today is about how truth sets you free, right?" asked Barisol. "Yeah," said Karina, resting her chin on the desk. "Well, so set us free, why don't you?" insisted Barisol. "I can see time as all sometimes," explained Karina. She added, "Here, let me draw you a picture." After explaining a bunch of mathematical concepts, Barisol asked his teacher, "All right, I get it. You are a wizard seer." Karina sighed and said, "If you say so, who cares even? Even if you know where you're going, sometimes it is impossible to change the course of your direction." "Like a horse being led towards a cliff," said Miko. "Or like a train," suggested Casimir. "Yeah, like a train," affirmed Karina. She didn't bother to explain what was a train. Trains in those days was what people called the awfully long veils that trailed behind the dresses. So a train could also serve as an example there. What Karina did not know at the time was that Casimir actually meant locomotives. In the end, she sighed and said, "Well, let's just get started with class already. The others can just read the story notes about them." "What do you mean by the truth setting us free?" asked Barisol. "In what way are we prisoners?" asked Casimir. Karina brought out a tiny bird inside a cage. He opened the door for it, but the bird did not leave. Miko said, "Aha! We are used to a little cage, that we do not realize that we have been set free." Time?
2 minutes.
"Yes and no," said Karina. She reached her hand inside the cage, and the bird perched on her finger and then got out of the cage. It flew around the classroom a bit before returning inside his cage. And for the rest of the class section, the bird kept wandering about a bit and then returning to his place of comfort. Karina had bought the bird at a store. The bird had its wings plucked, and Karina had fixed the wings, and this had allowed the bird to regain its ability to fly. Still, after running into an owl, the bird would wander very little around the neighborhood, and he would always return to the safety of the cage in order to sleep. Karina told the story of the little bird to her student. When she concluded, she said, "So what is your takeaway of this little story?" "Well, I suppose fear keeps us from exploring," suggested Barisol. "There is a difference between fear and being careful. There is nothing to be gained from going into dangerous, unexplored areas," said Miko. "Back when I was younger, I used to get into similar scrapes. Then one day, a creepy silence demon came out to me and took my light, and ever since then, I have been afraid of even my own shadow," said Carmeta. Time?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
"Oh yeah," said Karina. "Well, about that silence demon. There's no point in talking about him," said Vinica. He added. "And besides, losing one's light is part of being an elf. You get a random number of years as a pretty elf, and then the rest of the time you spend it with photosensitivity. You still live longer and look as fresh and you live longer than any human could ever dream of. Time is relative, Vinca. For some reasons, a moment is like infinity, and for others, a lifetime is a second. In the end, it doesn't matter how much time has passed. We can only live in the present. No amount of time will ever suffice." Alright.